You're, the secret superpower behind a lot of people that many of us have heard of, right? We're like, we see their marketing, we see their websites, we see their online presence. And Tiffany, you're the one behind the scenes, like really the creative genius and thought leader that's like helping empower and expand their impact. Their and their success in the world in many cases. So I'm really excited because you and I are working on redoing all of my speaking assets right now. Because remember, it's not just about websites for those of us thought leaders, there's speaking assets, there's book portals, there are the other ways that people online can experience us, can hire us, can get transformation from us. And Tiffany, you build the not only beautiful, but easy to use and high converting experiences. I think that websites and book portals and speaker kits are experiences. So I'm really
Absolutely.
excited that you're here. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit more about you, what you do? And then we're going to dive into you and I have some real passions, maybe bones to pick around, marketing and creating these assets. And I want everybody to like, all be able to learn from you like I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the lovely introduction, Sarah. And as you said, I'm at this moment really grateful and lucky to be that behind the scenes expert supporting so many thought leaders. But my first beginnings of design and branding actually started in college. That's what I went to school for. I worked my way up from intern to creative director at a Fortune 500 marketing firm where we worked with brands like Burt's Bees, Stoli Vodka, Chase Bank, Adidas, a lot of big names. And so I worked there for close to 20 years and really learned everything there is to know. I was also a professor of design and branding at Kendall
Ah,
College of Art and Design. So I live, eat, and breathe this stuff basically. And then I had my daughter, like so many of us do, and just wanted, we have different reasons for wanting to become thought leaders, entrepreneurs. But for me, that was the turning point, and I wanted, more time freedom, and also to really, we have so much when we met, we're like, oh my gosh, like we have the same message. Like I talk about making your message a movement. We both talk
yes.
about legacy. And so that's really the other reason is I was like, I'm building all these brands for other people. And, I want to build my own brand, but I also want to be behind the scenes of people who are really making a massive impact in the world
Yeah.
through their stories or their services and things like
Yes.
that. And so that's why I'm just so grateful to love what I do, every moment of it, and to have experiences like this. So,
Well, we are so grateful because that's why, as Tiffany said when we met, it was like, oh, we're already sisters in this. We come from, again, that similar viewpoint that we're here to start movements, that it's about helping people, it's about legacy, it's about storytelling, and you bring some very specific skills that a lot of us weren't trained in. A lot of us didn't get to work for 20 years with some of the top brands in the world and don't
mhm.
have a design background and don't know how to make it. We know the vision, we know the transformation that we want to provide in the world, and then we get to partner with incredible people like you, which is why I'm so excited that we get to redo our speaking assets with you. And those of you who are going to come to our, I think it's in January, we're going to be doing our Tiffany's actually going to come on for part of it. We're going to be doing a 1 day speaking intensive on the getting paid to speak, and we're going to be looking at creating our assets and actually doing that as a live workshop. And we'll be able to show you some of the cool stuff that we're starting to put together at the end of this year. So that's all exciting and to come. But Tiffany, let's talk a little bit about. I'm going to share this by way of getting us where I want to go next. I
Mhm.
realized about 18 months ago, maybe it was only a year ago. This year has felt long and short at the same time. I don't know if anyone else has had this. It's like, how is this all in 1 year? And also, how is it already almost November? Like I'm having that kind of a split response to it. But I did realize at least a year ago, a year to 18 months ago, that what would be imperative for me to make the quantum leap that I want to make in my business is to 100x my visibility.
Mhm.
And we don't just want to be more visible. Of course, we want to be more visible in a way that people understand what we do, how we can help them, how we can serve them, that we're the real deal, all those things, integrity based, generosity based. And so it was no surprise that the universe paired me and let me find you because I know you're the perfect, person to help us do this. And I, for so long, had focused on all the things, producing wonderful events, creating programs that got results, like doing the work, but not enough people knew about what we
Mhm.
do and not enough people knew about the work. And I also ran into the place where I sort of hit a ceiling in the kinds of speaking that I want to do. People need a different level of assets, which is what you and I are working on right now. Like Tiffany is and her team are really getting into the granular pieces with us and the big vision of how to do thought leader assets like your speaking webpage and your book portals that are going to be completely aligned with our methodology, here. So that's what's so exciting about like joining forces and kind of Wonder Twin powers for those of you old enough to know that reference from Justice League. But Tiffany, so what I realized I want to share with everyone is I realized brand was going to be everything. I realized that the what people could find online was going to let this happen or not let it happen. And so I really got to switch the focus of resources and learning in my own learning curriculum to
Mhm.
understand, well, how could we do that in a way that was, again, aligned, integrity, generosity based, but effective? Because I watched people, and some of you might have heard these names, like Mel Robbins, like Jason, I said Jason Priestley from 90210. Yeah, Daniel Priestley, who's a big marketing expert. Um, Stephen Bartlett, Dan Martell. Okay. So those of you in our live audience, put in the chat if you've heard a single one of those names. Like those are people, Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, Mel Robbins podcast, I keep wanting to do it, but Daniel Priestley in marketing. These are people, Dan Martell, okay? Buy back your time. Here's the deal. The move, because I'm always obsessed on the show with looking at what was the move, not what are people doing now once they're already at a big summit. What did they do to get from an earlier phase to that next household name place? And what I started hearing them all say is that everything changed when they started really putting equal attention, not just on what they do, but to the brand and marketing in a massive way, in a way that, Alex Hermosi, another name you might want to think about. What did he do? He started working on his front end visibility and marketing because we can be, and you all who are part of this audience, you are excellent at what you do. You do care. You are doing phenomenal work in the world. But I am going to say this, I rarely make emphatic statements. I don't think anyone in this community already is known by the total number of people that need to know what you do. There's no way. I'm not convinced a single one of us here, this is me included, knows enough about what you do. So, Tiffany, what are some of the mistakes that people make, whether they're thinking about, I need a website for what I do, I need a speaker page, I need a book port, like what are some of the mistakes that you see people making that are getting in their way?
Such a good question. And as always, we have common language. So I love that you said quantum leap at the
Yeah.
beginning, because that's really one thing that I focus on with all of my clients is how do you get from here to there, really, really quickly. And it's something that I try to practice myself. I almost view it as a spiral and you're like
Mm,
consistently going up, right? And so the biggest mistake that I see people doing is branding for where they are now instead of where they want to be. And so what I always do with clients is I help them look like 3, 5, 10 years out into the future. Where do you want to be? And then let's reverse engineer it and build the brand for where you want to be. Yes, your nervous system might need to catch up a little, but it allows you to grow and evolve along the way. And that's something, like you mentioned at the beginning, I worked with, we'll just use Selena since we know her as a
yeah.
mutual colleague. Um, you know, Worked with her for the past 6 years, and I've just seen the different evolutions that she's gone through. And we're redoing her website again right now, just because she has gone through like another cycle and shift. But it's always this upwards trajectory. And so the goal is, though, like we haven't redone her website since 6 years ago. So yes, eventually you do need to update, but the core foundation of her brand has never shifted since we first set it down, right? And that's what I call a legacy brand. But really, looking where you want to go and branding for that just allows you to get there that much faster. Like people are usually very blown away at like, oh wow, like I thought this would be a 10-year goal. It's actually happened in 2 years. And
So
that's because,
everybody, we all love that. All of you that were in New York with us, the 10-year plan becomes the 1-year plan. And
oh, is
Tiffany,
that what you talked about?
well, we did
So
talk a little bit
perfect.
about that because I've had it happen. When you
Hmm.
start working in your business like this, thinking from not it's the dress for the job you want, not the job you have phenomenon. And there's brain science behind it, which we can nerd out on a little bit because I wrote about this in the new book. But Tiffany, yeah, this is so it. Not building the
Hmm.
website for exactly where you are now, building the website for who you're becoming and what you're becoming. And of course, you're going to have your current offers and your things. Like you said, you've seen clients
Right.
go
And it
through
doesn't mean to like
evolutions.
lie about anything. It just means to position yourself for where you want to be. And most women, especially, and I say this,
Yeah.
I'm guilty of this too, we downplay our strengths, we downplay our
Yeah.
experiences instead of really owning them and putting them out into the world. And so that's the other thing too is we tend to view that's the other mistake I would say is we tend to
Yeah.
like compare and view other people. And when I see people coming in, I'm like, wow, look at all these credentials that we can show
Right.
off, or look at your experiences. And even if people are a little bit newer, like typically they're so much further along than they realize. And I have to really kind of dig to open up of like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like it's just normal to them. For the longest time, I didn't share I was a professor for 7 years, and
Right.
somebody called me out and they're like, that's huge. Like that adds just another layer of credibility. And I was like, oh, I guess I never thought of that. Like we're all guilty of it. And so I think that's one of the mistakes that I see. And I'm always helping people is digging deeper of like, things that you sometimes don't think are that important can be a game changer to positioning you as that expert, which you already are.
So this already is so huge. Do we just see with these two things? The first is even in your own mind, marketing yourself, even if it's in a sales conversation, positioning yourself in your own mind and the way you speak about what you do, all the way up through a website, a book portal, or a speaker page that is saying not only where I am now. Those of you that train with us came to Women Starting Movements in New York, we wrote your future bio. So you're going to think, not like Tiffany's saying, you're not putting your future bio on your website. Of course, like we're being honest about where we are. However, positioning like this is, we're growing as the leading expert in, the unique way that you are trained, but also not burying your treasures, right? And Tiffany, I love that, people called you out on, you were a professor for 7 years of marketing and branding. That's something that builds trust. So think about it as it's not bragging, it's building trust. Right.
Mhm.
And so the first thing is positioning yourself for where you're going, not just building marketing materials based on where you are immediately now. And then number two is making sure that you are actually showcasing the cool stuff you've already done. So this is a neat, like the future and the past come together in the present. That's powerful, and owning your awesomeness, because we think either, oh, everyone has that or everyone knows. They don't. And it's of service to let people know how credentialed and awesome you are, because then they feel trust in working with you. So I really like both of these. And Tiffany, is it okay if we do a little experiment where let me see if I can give an example of how someone listening might do both of the things you just asked us to
Yeah,
do? Because
absolutely.
sometimes it could be like, oh, that's a big thing. How am I positioning myself? So the way I would think of it in a speaker web page, like you and I are working on for me, would
Mhm.
be a tagline. So those of you that train with us in how to put your speaking page together, one of the things that can be useful is giving yourself a tagline under. It's like, I'm looking at Anne, who's here in our live audience, Anne McGuire, it could say if Anne knows in the next 5 years she wants to be the go-to person in this particular type of insurance, work that she does, it could be something like, a leading voice in the future of healthcare, or the future of, like, you're not saying the top person in the world. That's not something any of us can claim. But do we see the difference between, entrepreneur and an emerging voice in, or a leading voice in the future of healthcare? Like, I'm just making this up, right? But that's an example of positioning that is accurate, right? Anne is a leading voice in her field. I'm not probably articulating it exactly right, but that is true. And certainly where Anne likely wants to go in terms of her legacy and impact. So that's an example of you're not changing what you've done in your bio yet because you got to grow into that. But
Mhm.
that positioning is going to help you magnetize your own confidence and attract the kind of people who say, "Ooh, if I'm deciding between someone who's an insurance entrepreneur and a leading expert in the future of healthcare in this particular niche, I'm picking Anne, right? So that's an example there. And then in terms of exciting things we've done that we think are BS. You gave us a great example about you've been a professor, you weren't talking about it. I know when I heard that, I was very impressed in a way that made me feel more trust in working with you, right? It's just, we had a client, Diane Wilson lets me share the story. So, Diane, if you watch this episode, you'll know. And Diane had spoken at Harvard. She's a neuroscientist. She'd won multiple awards for her book that we did in Thought Leader Academy and then her podcast. She was like, "Oh, I don't want to say that because it just sounds kind of bragging and conceited." Can you imagine if someone's a neuroscientist that has presented at Harvard and her book won the, Kirkus Award and her podcast was a top one? Do you think people don't want to know? It's like, yes, if someone's talking to me about my brain and
That's
they're presenting at
everything. Yeah.
Harvard, I surely, and that had all happened. That was not a future poll. That was like she'd already done it. And she was like, "Oh, I don't want it to feel like bragging." And it's like, it's trust. So
Mhm.
telling the cool stuff you've done is a way for people to know they can trust you. No hiding, burying the treasure. We talked about that in New York. Okay. So Tiffany, is there any other mistake? I mean, those are already so huge. There doesn't need to be, but is there anything else we need to be
Yeah.
thinking?
I mean, the last one that I would add, I love three, so I'm gonna go with
Yeah.
three.
Yeah.
It would be just really starting to work on your own identity. So one thing that I see happen sometimes is, we'll create a new website or we'll create new assets, and we don't necessarily work on ourselves and the self-development to actually own that. And so believe it or not, we've built, and this doesn't happen often, but there was a few times that we've built websites and then the person, we go to launch it and they don't share it out, or they almost fail to launch. And it's because, there's a lot. It's actually identity work in my eyes.
Yeah.
Branding is identity work. And when we're working on that future self and creating that new website, it can feel a little bit like, oh my gosh, who am I to do this? And all of those like limiting beliefs can come up. And so that's really important in the work that I do too, is we don't just say, okay, here's the website, put it up, it looks pretty. Like, we're doing the deeper work below the surface as well, because if you don't fully own that and feel comfortable and confident about it, and I say this too because I was the girl when I was growing up afraid to ask for ketchup from a waitress. Like, I was so shy, and now I'm speaking on stages and I'm like, my brother still is like, how did this happen? And it's because I did the work. And I think all of us as entrepreneurs, or, thought leaders, we know that self-development is one of the biggest things, like, of that work, right? But it also goes along with branding. And so I just like to make it clear of like, it's incredible work, but the identity work that goes along with it cannot be skipped. And the thought leaders that you mentioned earlier, and love men, but I do think also it's easier for men in that sense to just own it and stand up there and be like, I'm the expert over everything, where
Yes.
most of us are like, oh, I'm okay. And like for me, I was like, I don't really want to be in the spotlight. I want to help others get in the spotlight. And now I've done the work so I can be in the spotlight as well. And I just want to just speak to that as like the
Yes.
last piece, because you can be the biggest expert, you can have the beautiful brand, but as you said earlier, if you're not putting yourself out there and being visible, and we could talk about this for hours, like I believe you don't have to be everywhere, you just really want to
Yes.
be in the places that you need to be, but hiding behind the scenes forever isn't going to get you anywhere. So
It's so important, which again is why we're working together and why you are our part of our dream team. And for our clients, gets to be, I know people were like, how can we get in touch with Tiffany? So we will make sure you all who are in the live audience today and afterwards, those of you in New York already, have Tiffany's contact information, but we'll give everybody that way to get in touch with Tiffany and her team because it is deep and it's the way, again, we're brain science based in our thought leader work here where we do the identity work because to write same thing, stepping into being a best-selling author, to getting on stages, to hosting a podcast. These aren't things that if we haven't done them before are going to feel like a cakewalk from a subconscious, a brain
Totally.
stem, amygdala perspective. We're going to get those warning bells. Oh, who do you think you are? Danger. You're not allowed. What if you fail? I mean, it's all that fear of visibility. So, Tiffany, I love, and that's why we work with you because there is a depth, and we're doing that same work that we're doing in thought leadership, you're doing in the branding side, around the identity piece. Also, that the, it's like, when you can hold it and own it, they always say the first sale is to ourselves, right? And so
Mhm.
when you feel enrolled and you do the inner work and the outer work of the new website, the speaker page, the book portal, then you can hold it confident. Like you're already enrolled and that energy is very magnetic, right? It's very
Absolutely.
magnetic. And there is a confidence gap. It's been studied and researched between men who think I'm amazing and then, women underestimate their skill and value and performance and men overestimate typically again not there's of course exceptions and so
Comfortable.
like we just get to right size ourselves in here by doing the work of hey I'm going to serve and shine my light in a bigger way so I thank you for not just doing the stuff on the outside but helping us do the inner work on the inside so let's talk about that 10 years and 2 years. We were talking about 10 and one, whatever it is, the kind of 10 and two or 10 and one. Can we talk about that for a little bit?
Absolutely. I love this stuff. We
Yes.
could talk about it all day.
Right. I love it too. And so is there let's talk about it from even a website perspective. When someone says, I'm going to be willing to share all the cool stuff that I already have done, and I'm going to create a web presence because this could be our social media platform, it could be the speaker page, any asset, any online asset.
Hmm.
I'm going to be willing to position myself for where I'm going over the next 5+ years. What happens? Like, what are some of the other ways you help someone make the 10-year plan, the 2-year plan?
Yeah, so a lot of it is in the messaging as well. So for a lot of people, and I know there is a little bit of crossover, but I know you're really helping them, position for the speaking for the book. We really help people create what I call a whole brand operating system. And so, we can very much, okay, you just need a speaker's page. Great. You got the operating system set. No problem. We can plug that into what already exists. But a lot of people will come and they'll either have kind of a non-existent brand just because,
Yeah.
we build the plane while we're flying it and they didn't
Yeah.
really, you're putting all the other things together. Or what I call a Frankenstein brand, which means, just pulling things from different places and it's not all congruent. And so, really, when we look at a brand operating system, it's the messaging, it's the foundation. And then the middle part is really, like website, social media, just everything. If you look at the top thought leaders, everything is like this, like great package. It's very consistent, coherent. And if you really pay attention, repetition is key. And I think we get tired of our own
Yeah.
offers and our own messages and our own things. And we want to try new things, but it actually confuses the audience. So if you look at somebody like a Mel Robbins, she's pretty repetitive in the way she
Yes.
is, but that's what makes her a thought leader is because she's known, or Brene Brown's a great example of this, right?
Yes.
Like she's very well known for her body of work. And so really getting what is that operating system down and then how are you going to deploy it? Because having it as an asset's great,
Right.
but not knowing, where to put it, how to put it, and not having an ecosystem in place and then a plan for how you're going to execute is really important as well. And so when you have all of that in place and you're no longer second guessing and like, oh, I have a new launch, I need a new name for this offer and I need a new logo and all those things. It's like, no, you have your operating system. How can you plug something new into that? So it
Mm.
just becomes a new asset in
Mhm.
one, ecosystem that already exists. And then it just takes so much time and effort and money off the plate in the long run once you have that foundation built, because you can just do things so much faster without thinking about it. And so that really helps people get to that 10x so much faster, because you're able to just move a lot faster, basically.
This is so crucial. So, because we talked about some of the mistakes that, and I've been both the people. I've done the no brand and I've done Frankenstein. Anyone else? You can let us know on social.
So,
You've
so
done.
common.
I've been both. I've done both. And now we're really focused on empowering the deep work and body of work that we have with a consistent, brand operating system, right? So, Tiffany, I love this, and I want to in the what to do. We know what not to do. Tiffany gave us the
Mhm.
3 steps, but in the what to do, of course, it's the reverse of those. Share what we've already done, position ourselves for where we're going, not just where we are now. And actually having a brand operating system instead of, again, a Frankenstein. I'm just triaging with different offers and kind of cobbling it all together. But I want to just drive home your point about repetition,
Mm.
because it's really true. If every one of you does a little homework assignment from this episode and takes a thought leader you follow, maybe you like Huberman Lab, maybe you like Gabby Bernstein, maybe you like pick your person, Glennon
Mhm.
Doyle. What you will see, at least for several years, is that they will have one message that every single thing they talk about, anyone who calls into the show, anyone that comes to them for a solution, any event that they host, any talk that they give, the book that they write next, and their social media and their website and all their stuff, it's going to all lead back to one very, very core, repetitive message. So for Gabby Bernstein, all her stuff for years and years and years is going to lead back to essentially the universe has your back. You can have signs. You can trust that guidance, right? Sonia Choquette, trust your vibes, trust your guides, right? In that same camp as a Gabby Bernstein. Mel Robbins, for several years, it was the 5-second rule.
Yep.
Anyone that had any question for her was solved by that one thing. Those of you in New York know I gave a whole talk on this, right? It all came back to it could be solved by counting back 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and taking an action. Everything went back to that message. And any social media posts were really about, hey, let's get you into action out of paralysis. She'd tell stories about it, and it led to the 5-second rule. She'd answer questions from the audience, led back to the 5-second rule. Now, put in the chat if you're in our live audience, what is the answer to every single podcast episode question? It's Mel's new book. What is the one message we're going to hear over and over and over for at least a couple years? If anyone's, following her stuff, yeah, you all
And
know
so
what it
much that
is.
I've heard people are getting tattoos of this
Yes, right?
message.
People are getting tattoos with let them.
Mhm.
Okay. So now it's about the let them message. Everything can be solved by just let people be who they are. But for years it was 5 seconds. So it's not like it has to be forever, but Tiffany's talking about let's think in several year increments,
Right.
and it all leading back. It's all leading back to what's my answer to everything. And it really freakishly is, we've got to download it, right? All the new work. It's just, I need to know what to do next in my book. We're going to use the brain science techniques to download the answer. What do I do to get picked on speaking? We're going to download it. You know what? That is the practices that let us have the downloads do answer every question. So that's an authentic one for what we're working on. So I love this so much, Tiffany, that it's just, we're not doing a million different Frankenstein messages. We're bringing everyone back to one core solution.
Mhm.
And it's easy and congruent. Brene Brown, it's going to come back to dealing with your vulnerability and shame. You want to
Exactly.
be a leader? Deal with your vulnerability and shame. You want me to train your group? Let's deal with the vulnerability and shame. You're a one single person reading, how do you feel better in your life? You're going to deal every time over and over, many books on that one topic.
Yeah. I would add two to the list. Going back to Selena again, people who know her, it was impacting millions for years. And then now we're moving into rich relationships. So the beautiful thing is we do grow and expand. But like I said earlier, that core brand, like we watched Mel, if those of you who are familiar, move from one message to the other but there's also a way to guide that shift and change. So if you're kind of pivoting right now, I feel like it's in the air. A lot of people are doing that right now. And they're like, I'm kind of done with this phase or this season and I want to move into this. That's part of the brand too, is like
Yes.
really evaluating what you want to keep and still own and like what comes with you, but also what are you ready to release and shed as you step into this new identity. You don't want to necessarily change everything because that can shock people. So like there's still some congruency throughout everything.
Yes.
You can, once you have that foundation, you can kind of shift and step into a new identity without, seeming completely different.
Well,
Um,
and there's a process. I want to honor what you're saying here, that there's an elegant, like to me, we call it in our community, like building the bridge, building the mission bridge.
Love that.
Downloads using brain science to tap our genius and create miracles is not like nothing to do with thought leadership. It's like, what do we do with the downloads? Often we want to put them into a book or a business or a talk or a mission or a movement. So they're very related, yet it's a different, it is an evolution, right? And that doesn't happen. We're doing this over 18 months. There's an evolution of messaging. It doesn't change the core work. We're still doing books and speaking and all the things. There's a different doorway, right? And it's a more expansive body of work. Selena helping people, impacting millions, getting visible, contributing in the media, but having rich relationships is where you get to do the work to be able to go impact millions, right? So it's still, so we build the bridge, and that's my language, Tiffany, and you have your language
No,
for it. But that,
100%. I love the bridge language. I use it too.
yes, because it's otherwise it is jarring. Someone's like, wait a minute, Joyce was just talking about this and now we're on to like then it feels discombobulated and chaotic versus a beautiful, elegant bridge. Mel Robbins evolved. 5 second rule got her to becoming a national speaker, building a huge recognized brand and audience. And then as she transitioned to her podcast, she was ready for a new message when she could say, hey, you're all ready to grow with me. And it's a growing with, right? Everyone who's been in thought leader world, not everyone's going to be interested in, the more evolved brain science and gamma waves and all that. But a lot of people are like, yeah, I want the genius ideas for my thought leadership. I want the miracles for my abundance through thought leadership, right? So there's an evolution and a connection where people can grow with us as we grow. Our people we're here to serve grow with us, and where it doesn't give the bends, like in scuba diving, to people in your audience or who just know about you in the marketplace. And they're not like, wait, what? She was over here, now she's here. So Tiffany, this is absolutely enormous because you're teaching us to do the inner work. You're teaching us about evolution of brand, and you're teaching us how to do our branding assets well, that are not just beautiful and compelling and high converting and good marketing, but that we've done the identity work to catch up to the person we're becoming. You talked about our nervous system regulating to the new level and those things. Is there anything else? We're going to be, everyone, you're going to get to come train with Tiffany in January too. Like we're going to be doing a whole, as we get into more of like looking at some of these specific assets like speaker pages. And Tiffany, I'll ask you in a minute to let everyone know where they can find you before then, because I know lots of people don't want to wait until January. But anything else we didn't cover today as we look at where we are at the fourth quarter of a year, going into a new year soon, and thinking about making this new year our brand year to help us go from a 10-year plan to 1 or 2 years? Anything else we haven't touched on to lay the foundation? Obviously, there's so much more we're going to get into when we have you back.
Yeah, no, I think we covered most of like the big points. I guess the last thing I would think about is I do really feel like, we are in an interesting shifting time right now with the way technology and AI is coming in and
Yeah.
all of that. And so I really like to talk about that. Brand isn't just like the logos, colors, fonts. It's also the message. It's how you're showing up, where you're showing up. What are you wearing when you go to live events? How does that all fit together? And we can talk about that more at a later date. But also really looking at where we're heading. The other thing that I always forget to say about myself was I was a trend predictor in corporate. I also got called out on that. So
Let's go. Okay.
I would
Okay.
help go into different companies and say, okay, what are we looking at? And Sarah, you and I, we haven't even talked about the brain science stuff enough. And of course, here you are talking about it. I'm like, of course, we are so aligned.
Yeah.
But I think that's such a big piece of it too is, if you can be kind of ahead of the curve. So I'm building like a lot of AI platforms already. Um, so like, what does that look for your brand and how do you really future proof your brand? I think it's
Mhm.
actually an opportunity. A lot of people have been scared about the future and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I actually think we have a beautiful opportunity ahead of us, no matter what type of work we're in, if we look at it in that positive state. And if we look at it as like banding together and rising up together and all of those good things. So, without sharing all the details due to time,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I just think there's a really positive outlook right now and a new wave of thought leaders is the other thing
Yes.
I want to say. I feel like a lot of people have been saying a lot of the same things, and they're still going to be very relevant. But I just have this sense that there's a whole new wave of people that are going to rise to the top if they believe that their work is meant to do that and they're ready for it. I don't know how sometimes I just feel these things, but I'm like, I'm very sure about this. And I think the majority is going to be women. If we look at the bro marketing and all of those things that have been happening like the past 10 years, I think this new wave is going to be very female focused.
Mm.
And it's a really beautiful opportunity for us to help make a massive shift.
Okay, well, I'm so freaking excited to do. I want to do now a whole episode on trends for the new year. So we may have to do two things in January, Tiffany. This is really exciting. But
Sounds
thank you
good.
for speaking to that because we also all do get those again. That's types of downloads, nudges, intuitions, like why do I know it? That's your, clair cognizance, right? You just sort of like,
Mhm.
why do I know it? I just do. I have
Mhm.
that feeling. And that is a feminine leadership quality, whether you identify as female or male is not important, but a feminine leadership quality is the intuitive leader. It is the leader trusting those downloads. And so, Tiffany, this is really exciting to think. I also have to just loop back on one piece, which is, are you even consulting your clients on how to dress the brand and how, I mean, is that because we talk so much about the Harvard study term, right, is enclothed cognition. So it's basically like what you put on affects not only your how you feel, we know that,
Mhm.
but it affects our performance. Actually, it even affects how much of our genius and capacity and intelligence we can tap into. There's numerous studies that I'm obsessed with that are in the new book, but Tiffany, is that part of like you'll even consult people on, okay, great, here's your website or your speaker page, but how are you making sure you're having every way that people experience you align with that brand operating system?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really a part of the process. And sometimes we'll go deeper with some people than others. Like if they're working hand in hand with a photographer and they're helping kind of craft,
Yeah.
the look and feel, then, I usually have some creative direction in there. But it is so important because um again, it's that golden thread through everything, the website, what you're wearing and showing up. You can see my jacket that I'm wearing today happens to be the same color as my wall. Well, these are my brand colors. That is intentional, and that's
Mm.
because our brain processes that. So when you go to my website and you see the brand colors, you're probably not consciously going to realize that, but you're going to feel a familiarity when you visit the website, right? And so 100% what you're saying, Sarah. And even when you're going to live events and those types of things, and speaking is, a huge thing. If you're not comfortable and you're wearing something that's, you're shifting and moving and
Yeah,
it's awkward,
of course.
it's going to be a huge deal breaker. So,
It's really exciting to see this where you're helping us think holistically is the feeling I have and I have since we
mhm.
met about our brands and about the inner work and the outer work, the external assets, but also how are they aligning with how we're showing up. And like you said, no one's going to consciously, if we hadn't discussed it, think, oh, Tiffany was wearing this beautiful blue sort of velvet. I don't know if it's denim or velvet, but it looks sort of velvety from
It
on the
is.
screen, right? That was, we'll just see it was beautifully harmonized with your space. And then when we see your brand, most of us wouldn't have made a connection, but subconsciously we do because
Mhm.
there's harmony. It's playing a harmonic chord versus a discordant like you said, Frankenstein sort of brand. So thank you for modeling that. That was a really fun little twist. And we will keep you all posted when you can come back and actually train in our 1 day, with Stephanie. Stephanie, I'm thinking of our other Stephanie that's going to come on with us that day that we both know, with Tiffany, myself, and there'll be a Stephanie there too. When you can come on and train if you want to, those of you watching today, in the full how to do our speaking assets and our branding, and look at what Tiffany and I are working on with AI. I always say the DI, the divine intelligence, the CI, creative intelligence, with the AI,
Ooh,
the
I love
artificial
that.
intelligence. Yeah, that's the download universe. And that's what we are doing. I know together, Tiffany, that's the fun of working with your team. So would you let everyone know best way they can reach out to you if they don't want to wait until we have you back?
Absolutely. So the website is Your Legacy Brand. We're building out the brand operating system is being trademarked right now, and that will be a new website as well. But that's the best place to reach me. And then the only social media platform I'm currently on is LinkedIn. If you go to Instagram, you can follow me, but I have a 9 grid, but there's some really good resources there, but I'm hanging out and posting on LinkedIn. So
Perfect. So yourlegacybrand.com or LinkedIn under your name, Tiffany. They can just find you under your name.
yep, exactly.
Perfect.
Absolutely. And feel free to email too. It's just tiffany@tiffanynewman.com if you're like, oh, I want to talk sooner. I think my calendar is kind of booked. So, and also
I
make
know.
sure that you let me know that we connected through Sarah, because I always want to make sure where people are
Yes.
coming from if we connect before our next meeting.
So everybody, if you're reaching out to Tiffany before we do our longer speaking intensive in January, make sure that you just say met you through Sarah Cannell or through Women Starting Movements, because Tiffany, obviously, you were in Las Vegas during the event, but you were in the room with us
Yes,
energetically,
my
and we were
spirit was
talking
there.
about you and telling everyone you're going to get to meet her on the podcast, and then in January in a live training. So thank you for making time for us. I'm excited to hear any other trends, but how fabulous the future is female leadership. So, woo, I'm excited. Let's have a great week, everyone. We will see you next time. And Tiffany, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.